Don't come to my wedding. My wife doesn't want to see you. The message hits my phone like a slap, sharp and sudden, even though I'm sitting alone at the kitchen table. My coffee cup freezes halfway to my lips. For a few seconds, the house feels unnaturally quiet, as if the walls themselves are listening. I read the words again, slower this time, letting each line sink in. Don't come. Doesn't want to see you. The sentence is cold, efficient, stripped of any trace of hesitation or shame. My thumb hovers over the screen, not shaking, not angry, just suspended in disbelief. After 74 years of living, after raising him, guiding him, backing him every step of the way, this is how I'm dismissed. Not face to face, not even with a call. Just a message sent casually, like canceling a reservation. I set the cup down carefully, afraid the slightest tremor might betray what I'm feeling. My heartbeat is slow but heavy, each thud echoing in my chest. I lean back in my chair and stare at the sunlight creeping across the floor, the same kitchen where I once helped him with homework, where his laughter used to bounce off these walls. There's a strange pressure behind my eyes, not tears, just the weight of a realization I've avoided for too long. This wasn't written in anger. That's what makes it worse. This was written with confidence, with certainty, as if my absence had already been accepted, planned for, justified. I read the message again, this time noticing what isn't there. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement of everything that led up to this moment. Just an instruction, delivered like a final decision. I think about the months leading up to this wedding. The constant calls asking if payments had gone through. The casual way expenses were mentioned, always followed by silence once I confirmed they were handled. Venue deposit, catering advance, music, decorations. I was never asked if I wanted to help. It was assumed. I allowed it because I thought being useful meant being valued. My phone buzzes again. Another message. Shorter this time. Please just respect our wishes. I let out a slow breath through my nose. Respect. The word hangs in the air, hollow and misplaced. Respect is not something demanded after humiliation. Respect is built through consideration, through honesty, through recognizing the humanity of the person you're speaking to. I type back 2 letters. Okay, nothing more. No punctuation. No emotion. I place the phone face down on the table, as if turning it over might quiet the noise inside my head. The silence that follows is different now. Heavier. Sharper. I stand and walk into the living room, my footsteps slow and deliberate. Framed photos line the wall. His first school picture. A family vacation we couldn't really afford, but took anyway. A graduation photo where his smile was wide and genuine, his arms slung around my shoulder. I stop in front of it longer than I expect to. I don't feel anger. I feel clarity creeping in, steady and unavoidable. I sit in my chair and let my thoughts settle. For years, I told myself that keeping the peace was the same as doing the right thing. That swallowing discomfort was a form of love. But sitting there, with that message still burning in my pocket, I understand something important. Love doesn't mean erasing yourself, and kindness doesn't require accepting disrespect. I think back over every conversation where my opinions were brushed aside. Every decision already made before I was informed. Every time my role was reduced to a bank account with a familiar name attached to it. None of it felt wrong at the time because I believed I was helping. Because I believed my presence mattered. This message proves otherwise. I glance at the clock on the wall. Time moves forward without hesitation, just like decisions do once they're made. 30 minutes. That's how long it takes for assumptions to become consequences. I don't rush. I don't pace. I sit there, breathing evenly, feeling something inside me shift from hurt to resolve. Calm resolve. The kind that only comes when you finally stop asking to be included and start deciding for yourself. My wallet rests on the side table. Inside it, a business card from the wedding planner, slightly worn from being handled too often. My phone lights up as I unlock it, the banking app already open from earlier that morning. I study the screen, not with anger, but with precision. Every payment, every authorization, every confirmation was made under my name, my approval, my responsibility. Not as leverage, not as a threat, simply as a fact. Outside, a car passes. Somewhere across town, someone is finalizing seating arrangements, confident everything is under control. They don't know anything has changed. They don't know a boundary has just been drawn, clear and unmistakable. If I'm not welcome at the wedding, then neither is what I bring with me. Not out of spite, out of alignment. I pick up the phone again. My hand is steady, my expression calm. I don't rehearse what I'm going to say because there's nothing dramatic to explain. I'm not canceling out of anger. I'm responding to a decision that was already made for me. One slow breath. Then I make the call. And as the line begins to ring, I realize this moment isn't about revenge at all. It's about dignity. About finally understanding that respect works both ways. And when it's taken away, support doesn't automatically follow. This is only the first call. And before the day is over, the meaning of that message will change forever. The call ends quietly, without drama. No raised voices, no accusations. Just a calm confirmation on the other end and a polite assurance that everything can be handled swiftly. I thank them and set the phone down. My pulse hasn't changed. That's how I know I'm doing the right thing. Anger makes mistakes. Calm makes decisions. I stand by the window for a moment, watching the street. The same delivery truck passes by at the same time every morning. A woman jogs past with her headphones in, unaware of how quickly a life can tilt off its familiar axis. I wonder if my son feels it yet. If he's sensed even the faintest tremor beneath the certainty he wrapped himself in last night. I don't think so. People like him rarely do, at least not until the ground gives way. The first notification comes less than 10 minutes later. I don't look at it right away. I make myself another cup of coffee instead. Slower than usual, listening to the water heat, feeling the mug warm my hands. When I finally check the phone, it's a missed call. His name fills the screen. I let it fade. Then another call. And another. I sit down again, this time not at the kitchen table, but in the living room, where the light is softer and the silence deeper. The phone vibrates in my palm. I don't answer, not yet. I know this pattern well. First comes confusion, then irritation, then panic. I'm in no rush to interrupt that progression. A text follows. Short, sharp. What did you do? I read it once. Then again, I don't respond. Minutes pass. The phone rings again, longer this time. When it stops, another message arrives. This one longer, rushed, the words tripping over each other. Payments not going through. Vendor portals locked. Cards declined. He's demanding answers from people who no longer answer to him. I imagine him pacing, jaw clenched, phone pressed hard to his ear, his confidence unraveling in real time. I finally answer on the next call. Not because I'm pressured, but because the moment feels right. I say his name calmly, the way I always have. There's a pause on the other end, like he wasn't prepared for my voice to sound so steady. He starts talking immediately, fast and loud, questions tumbling out without waiting for answers. I let him finish. I always do. When he finally stops to breathe, I speak, slowly, evenly. I remind him of the message he sent me. I repeat his words back to him, exactly as written. I tell him I respected his wishes. That seems to confuse him more than anything else. His voice rises again, sharp with accusation, as if respect was never meant to have consequences. He says I embarrassed him, that I went too far, that this isn't what he meant. I let a beat pass before I answer. You told me not to come, I say. So I didn't. He tries to interrupt, but I continue, not raising my voice. I explain that every arrangement was made in my name. every payment authorized by me. That since I was no longer welcome, it felt inappropriate to remain involved. My tone never changes. That unsettles him more than anger ever could. He goes quiet. Not completely, but enough. I can hear the shift, the recalculation. The sudden awareness that the situation isn't spiraling because of some mistake, but because of a choice he made without thinking it through. He brings up his wife then, says she's stressed. Says this isn't a good time. I listen without reacting. Stress doesn't excuse disrespect. Timing doesn't erase accountability. I tell him that calmly too. I tell him that if I'm expected to be invisible, then so is my support. The call ends abruptly. Not with resolution, but with tension thick enough to taste. I sit there afterward, phone resting on my knee, feeling neither victorious nor guilty. Just settled. There's a strange peace that comes from finally aligning your actions with your self-respect. I wish I'd learned it earlier. But some lessons wait until they're unavoidable. By early afternoon, the messages start coming from other directions. A planner, a vendor, even a distant relative who somehow got wind that something is wrong. I don't engage, I don't explain. This isn't a spectacle. It's a boundary. Outside, the sky darkens slightly as clouds roll in. The house feels quieter than it has in years, but not lonely. Honest, I know this isn't over. I know the real confrontation hasn't happened yet. When the shock wears off, anger will return. Accusations will sharpen. Blame will look for a place to land, and when it does, it will land on me. I'm ready for that. Because the next time my son speaks to me, it won't be from a place of certainty or control. It will be from a place of need. And that changes everything. The knock comes in the early evening. Firm and impatient, the kind that doesn't ask to be let in, but assumes the door will open. I'm already in the living room when it happens, sitting in my chair, hands folded, listening to the sound echo through the house. I don't rush. I let the moment stretch, letting whoever is on the other side feel the weight of waiting. When I finally stand and open the door, my son is there, breathing hard, eyes sharp with anger and panic twisted together. His wife stands just behind him, arms crossed tightly, her gaze darting past me into the house, as if searching for something to hold on to. Neither of them greets me. He steps inside without asking, his movements abrupt, his presence filling the room with tension. I close the door behind them slowly and return to my chair. I don't offer them seats. I don't raise my voice. I don't ask why they're here. The silence forces him to speak first, and he does, immediately, words spilling out in a rush of accusation and disbelief. He talks about contracts, embarrassment, people asking questions he can't answer. He says I blindsided him, that I humiliated them, that I made him look weak. I let him talk. I watch his hands shake as he gestures, the way his jaw tightens when I don't interrupt. His wife remains quiet, but I notice the strain in her posture, the way her eyes move between us, the way her lips press together every time he raises his voice. She isn't surprised by what happened. She's surprised it happened so cleanly. When he finally stops, I speak. I don't defend myself. I don't explain every detail. I remind him of one thing only: he told me not to come. I repeat his message, word for word, slowly, carefully, making sure nothing is softened or misunderstood. I tell him I respected his boundary. That seems to anger him more than anything else. He says that's not what he meant. That I should have known. That family doesn't do things like this. I look at him for a long moment before responding. I tell him family also doesn't discard someone when it's convenient. Family doesn't reduce a father to an expense line. Family doesn't ask for everything and offer nothing but silence in return. That's when his wife finally speaks. Not loudly. Not defensively. She says she didn't think it would go this far. Her voice is tight, controlled, but there's something else there too. Uncertainty. She says they were overwhelmed. That things got out of hand. She doesn't apologize. She explains. There's a difference. I nod once, acknowledging her words without agreeing to them. I tell them both that overwhelm doesn't erase responsibility. That respect isn't something you pause when life gets busy. My son scoffs, but his voice wavers when he speaks again. He asks what it will take to fix this. Not to fix the relationship. To fix the wedding. That question lands heavier than any insult he's thrown. I lean back slightly and look at him, really look at him, and I realize how unfamiliar he's become. When did urgency replace humility? When did expectation replace gratitude? I tell him quietly that money was never the real issue. That it was never about control or punishment. It was about being told I didn't belong. The room goes still. His wife looks at him then, really looks, as if seeing something she's been ignoring. He doesn't meet her eyes. He looks at the floor, then back at me, his confidence cracking under the weight of realization. He starts to say something, then stops. Whatever was supposed to come out doesn't sound convincing anymore. I tell them I'm not making any more calls tonight. That they can figure out their next steps on their own. That whether or not anything is reinstated depends on a conversation that hasn't happened yet. A real one. Not a negotiation. Not a demand. He bristles at that, but he doesn't argue. He knows the ground beneath him is no longer solid. They leave not long after, quieter than when they arrived. The door closes behind them with a soft final sound that lingers in the room. I sit back down and let the silence return. I don't feel victorious. I feel tired. But it's the kind of tired that comes from standing up straight after years of bending. Outside, the evening settles in, slow and steady. I know the next move isn't mine. And that realization gives me an unexpected sense of peace, because whatever comes next will reveal not just what they want but who they are willing to become. The night passes quietly. Without calls, without messages, without the frantic noise that filled the day before. I sleep more deeply than I expected to. Not because things are resolved, but because for the first time in a long while, I am not carrying a weight that was never meant to be mine alone. When morning comes, the light enters the house gently, spreading across the walls as if nothing extraordinary has happened. But everything has. I make breakfast slowly, deliberately, listening to the familiar sounds of my own home. There's a strange comfort in routine when life feels uncertain. As I sit down with my coffee, I think about the look on my son's face the night before, not the anger, not the frustration, but the moment when he realized the situation couldn't be fixed with urgency or demands. That moment stayed with me. It told me something had finally shifted. Late in the morning, my phone rings. His name appears again. This time I answer immediately. His voice is different, quieter, not defeated, but stripped of the sharp edge it carried before. He doesn't accuse me. He doesn't raise his voice. He tells me they spent the night trying to piece things together, calling vendors, hearing the same response again and again. He says it was humiliating. I let him finish before I speak. I tell him humiliation is being told you don't belong where you gave everything. I tell him that being excluded without conversation cuts deeper than financial loss ever could. There's a pause on the line, long and uncomfortable. Then he says something he hasn't said in a very long time. He says he didn't think about how it would feel. Not really. That admission matters. We talk longer than we have in years. Not about money. Not about the wedding. About expectations. About how easy it is to forget who stood quietly behind you once life starts moving faster. I don't lecture him. I don't list sacrifices. I speak plainly, calmly, the way a father should when the goal isn't to win, but to be understood. He tells me his wife is scared. Not about the wedding anymore, but about what this revealed between them. I tell him fear can be useful if it leads to honesty. Silence only leads to distance. He listens. I can hear it in the way he doesn't rush to respond. By the end of the call, nothing is fully resolved. The wedding is still uncertain. Plans are still fractured. But something more important has been acknowledged: boundaries, respect, the fact that love does not mean unlimited access. And support does not survive humiliation. I don't promise to reinstate everything. I don't need to. I tell him we'll talk again soon, and that when we do, it won't be about transactions. It will be about trust. He agrees. Not eagerly, sincerely. When the call ends, I sit there for a long time, phone resting in my hand, feeling a quiet heaviness lift from my chest. I understand now that this wasn't about canceling payments. That was only the surface. This was about finally matching my actions to my worth. In the afternoon, I step outside and sit on the porch, watching the day move forward. Neighbors come and go. Life continues. I think about how easily respect erodes when it's never questioned, and how quickly it returns when boundaries are finally drawn. I don't know exactly how this story will end. Whether the wedding happens as planned, or changes entirely, or becomes something else altogether. What I do know is this: my son will never again mistake silence for weakness. He will never assume presence without respect. And I will never again make myself smaller to be included. Some lessons arrive late in life. Others arrive just in time. This one arrived when it mattered most, because real authority doesn't come from control or money. It comes from knowing when to say, okay, and meaning something entirely different.